2013 has been a pretty crazy year for me. I started up this channel, I made a website, I got invited to join this podcast that I used to be a fan of this time last year. I met a bunch of new people because of that, but most importantly, I watched anime. I watched a lot of anime. 72 of which were ones that aired this year, 59 originals and 13 sequels. Which brings me on to the topic I shall be talking to you about today. I'm going to run through what I deem to be the very best, my personal favourites, the top 13 anime of 2013. And yes, I plan to do this every year, and yes, it shall be one digit longer each time. But before we do that, I just want to run through the rules real quickly and tell you what it is that makes a series eligible to be on this list. So first and foremost, it has to be a TV series, so no movies or OVAs. Secondly, it has to be the first season of whatever show it was. My reasoning for that being would be if I included sequels, then I'll be recommending a bunch of shows to you all that you wouldn't be able to go out and watch straight away. That and my love for franchises like Raildex and Manamike could have led me to be biased and put these shows way higher on the list than they should have been. There is an exception to this rule though, that being if both the first and second seasons of the show aired during this year, and in that case they'd be combined into one and take up a single spot on the list. Then third and finally, and most importantly, in order to feature on this list, the show had to finish airing in 2013. So the two core shows from this time last year are eligible, but your Sam Flams, your Golden Times and your Kill the Kills are going to have to wait until next year's list. And with that kerfuffle out of the way, let's get straight in there with number 13. Yup, this might come as a bit of a surprise to some of you considering how much flack I was giving to the first season after that aired, but yes indeed, Valvrave the Liberator has made its way into my top 13. Valvrave is a 24 episode batshit crazy shonen mecha series produced by Sunrise that aired in two 12 episode seasons in spring and fall. And I was really not keen on this thing after the first series. I thought it was an atrociously written, cliched and generic mecha series and it did not do anything for me. It was full of these out of nowhere plot twists that just got resolved instantly and these stupid situations that I just didn't find amusing at all. But as soon as the second season started airing, it all just clicked for me. And I don't think it was that I'd misjudged the first series, it's just that it felt like that everything that happened was built up to make it so the situation in the second series was possible. In terms of story, it's your usual warring nations in space deal with a bunch of hilariously unpredictable plot points and general madness that made it more fun and addictive than exploding rainbows on roller skates. Number 12. This one actually ended up being the final show I watched of 2013. Maggie aired back between fall and winter this time last year, and it was one of the very few shows I missed from that season. Having gone back to revisit some of the highly acclaimed shows of the year, this ended up being one that I was pleasantly surprised by. Maggie is a 25 episode shonen action fantasy series by A1 Pictures about people like Aladdin and Ali Baba and Sinbad and all those characters you've heard of in various works of fiction across the years. It follows a story of conquering dungeons and some genuinely interesting politics between nations on the cusp of war. The characters were all very likeable and had an incredibly well presented world, which is what I usually deem to be what makes or breaks a show like this. And as someone usually not all into those magical world scenarios, I'll tell you again that I was genuinely surprised by how good this show was. Therefore, if you are a fan of shonen action series generally, this one should definitely be on your agenda. Number 11. If you've been around long enough, then you'll know that this one was actually the 5th series I ever reviewed. Robotics Notes is a series that I hold in really high regard because though there are some small issues in its story and its pacing, it's the characters that really drew me in. I'd say Frau Kojiro is most likely my favourite character of the year, but the entire cast as a whole was so well delivered that it made me think really highly of all of them. It's a 22 episode sci-fi series by Production IG revolving around a robotics club in a school that aim to build their own mecha before uncovering various mysteries of corruption along the way. No, it's not on the level of Steins Gate, but it was everything I could have hoped it to be and is something I will absolutely be watching again one day. Number 10. What? Are you serious? Did you really just give a double-figure placement to the greatest anime of all time? Attack on Titan? Yes, I did. Some of you may well be pulling your hair out right now at this not being any higher on the list, but do bear in mind this is all my opinion. And Attack on Titan was a great series, one that I do believe in many ways deserved the hype built up around it. It had some of the most amusing plot twists and absolutely incredible action scenes I've seen from any anime this year, but it was sorely lacking in certain other areas. It was thoroughly enjoyable, that's for sure, and if you deem it to be the best anime of the year, then I think your decision is fully justifiable. But one thing I can say looking back on it in hindsight is that I have almost no personal attachment to it whatsoever, and honestly I wouldn't really really care if it never got a second season. So that's Attack on Titan, Shingeki no Kyojin, a 25-episode shonen action series by Production IG and Studio Wit that needs no further introduction than this because you've all already seen it. Number 9. Move into single digits now, and another one of those series that I almost never watched but ended up picking up post-season because I was recommended it by a bunch of different people. Kyosugiga began back in 2011 with a 1-episode OVA that left me pulling the following expression. It then continued with a few more OVAs back in 2012 which left me pulling a similar expression. But with its eventual 10-episode long full-length TV outing from Toei Animation last season, I can say I left completely satisfied. This is one of those shows I group with the likes of FLCL and Tatami Galaxy, and that its insanity is so fast-paced that if you're not giving it your full attention, it'd be more than likely you'd get lost. It's a very bizarre and interesting story that operates through various different time periods, revolving around a very strange family and their importance in relation to the changing eccentric world around them. It's a series I find very hard to describe, but still fully recommend it to those of you out there looking for something a little bit different to the usual. But you can skip the OVAs if you want to, as all of that stuff is shown again in the series but under more relevant context. It had some really interesting visuals, some bloody brilliant action scenes, dipped into some very thought-provoking themes, and is a series I would happily revisit one day to see if I could get even more out of it. Number 8. This one wound up on the list because it falls into a subgroup of shows that I always get a major kick out of. Now, Outbreak Company is a series I generally wouldn't be all that fond of. It revolves around a chap in the real world getting transferred into some magical fantasy place, which, excluding Escaflowne, is a setting I usually have major problems with. But the thing is, in this situation, and that thing that draws me into the show so much, is that he's brought into this magical fantasy world to be a representative of otaku culture and teach the residents about the ways of anime and figure collecting. Because whether it's Genshiken or Lucky Star or Kaminomi, I just always like the shows about otakus. I find them very relatable and great fun. But this series was also great for reasons beyond that. It had some truly spot-on comedy and a story that actually justifies itself somewhat. Because it being there was genuine, you know, it wasn't just a platform on which to force-feed you cultural references. It's 12 episodes long and was brought to you by Studio Feel of all places. They really did up their game from the usual ecchi drivel to bring us something brilliant this time around. So if you're into your otaku-fueled slice of life comedies, this one is not to be missed. Number 7. It's very rare for a slice of life series to make you think about things, real world things, while still remaining true to what makes the genre so enjoyable. Silver Spoon, Gin no Saji, an 11-episode slice of life comedy from A1 Pictures by that chick who wrote FMA, was a series I really was not expecting to like as much as I did. It's about a lad from the city entering an agricultural high school, learning about farming and all that, and getting a new outlook on life from it. It retains all those relaxing and peaceful vibes that you want out of the genre to just sit back and smile, but it also keeps layering on all these interesting developments to get you more involved. It had a very diverse cast, and each of them were likeable enough to earn the screen time they were given, and as protagonists go, Hachiken was a boss, and he wore glasses. Only problem was it was so bloody short. With Series 2 coming out next season, now is as good a time as any for you to all run along and check this thing out. Number 6. Next comes a series that was somehow able to really stand out and make itself known in a genre that doesn't usually produce genuinely exceptional works. My teen romantic comedy snafu, or Ore Gairu, is a 13-episode slice-of-life harem of sorts produced by Brainspace. It may not appear to be all that great to some, but to me it may as well be referred to as Hachiman the Animation. This show's protagonist is pretty much the definition of a character I can relate to and really enjoy. If you don't like this character though, then you won't like the series. Hachiman is a truly negative and pragmatic individual that chooses to isolate himself from others because he doesn't have the time for them. He's blunt and honest with everyone and everything, and that leads others to think he's a bit of a prick. Beyond him, there are some other great characters, but for the most part this is just a slice of life romantic comedy about a high school club. But Hachiman was just able to deliver some of the best dialogue I've ever seen, and it sits up there as one of my all-time favourites within its genre. I wouldn't really recommend it to everyone because I'm sure a bunch of you would turn your noses up at anything high school harem related, but for me, I loved it and want a second season more than you could possibly know. And that about concludes part 1 of this, my top 13 anime of 2019. 2013. But don't you worry, I shall be back shortly with part 2 and my top 5 anime of the year. But if you're watching this before that goes up, feel free to have a little guess in the comments as to what my top 5 is going to be. And whilst you're at it, seeing as I said Frau Kojiro was mine, why don't you all let me know what your favourite character of the year was? And with that, I have been BakaShift from OtakuKato.com, and I shall be seeing you all very soon. Maggie is a character from The Simpsons. Not an anime, just The Simpsons.